All right, welcome everybody back to the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast. I am Jesse Collings, joined here by my colleague Jason Ounpraseuth. Jason, how's it going today?
It's doing good. Yeah, doing well. Exciting stuff. Crowd's back. Lots of exciting things next week. Got Con. And his podcast is coming out. His quarterly podcast is coming
Ooh,
out next week.
the Nick Khan. Everyone go read my article on Voices of Wrestling that I published
Yeah,
earlier this week called Nick Khan is My Favorite Son Now, How Triple H and NXT Lost the Faith of Vince McMahon.
yeah,
It's
it's a
really
good
about
one.
Triple H more than Nick Khan, but really, I felt really passionate about when I wrote it, when I was like, damn, like this is great. Like one of my better things that I've written. It's so nice when you write something and like you don't even have to think about it. It just flows out of you. And before I know it, like 1,800 words have gone by. It's really the optimal way of how I want to operate, but we can't always be like that. Sometimes we get writer's block. Um, but today, I was gonna say, Jason, you look more relaxed today. I don't know if it's because you got the top button undone or you got a haircut or something, but you look very relaxed. Like you're almost on vacation, even though I know you're at your house.
Yeah, it must be the coffee kicking in right now. What hasn't kicked in, I should
I,
say.
I
Yeah,
know.
the coffee. I only had one cup of coffee so far.
Yes, it will kick in. But today we're going to be talking about the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards. But really, this is going to be like a mid-year kind of award assessment, and whether you follow the Wrestling Observer Awards or not is not really paramount to the discussion we're going to have. But we're going to use their categories, kind of the main awards that are given out and voted on by the Wrestling Observer readers, just because there's a lot of history that goes into the awards, and a lot of people are familiar with them. But if you're not a Wrestling Observer subscriber and you're not familiar with the awards, don't worry, because you don't have to really know anything about them to understand this. But really, we're going to be looking at the midway point of the year, even though we're a little bit past it at this point, and kind of look at who we think are some of the front runners for the award, who are maybe our personal picks, who we might be voting for at the end of the year, and kind of look at that. And it's interesting time in wrestling. Obviously, it looks like it's going to be interesting. It looks like you can almost divide the like pandemic era of wrestling, where you didn't have really live crowds for the first half of the year, and then the live crowds for the second half of the year, which creates an interesting dynamic, because I think a lot of these awards are likely to change between now and the end of the year, because we're going to have people in front of live crowds and we're going to know a lot more about it.
Yeah, for sure. And especially some like the more match based awards or
Mm-hmm.
like feud of the year, like like Omega and Page like just now start kicking off their feud. And so like that could possibly be a contender feud of the year. We just don't know yet because all out is like coming up in a couple weeks. So we don't really know that just yet. Of course, the G1 is coming up later on this year. And so again, we don't really know just yet. Like all these matches of the year could obviously change. It's always very fluid.
I think it's reasonable to believe that matches that are going to be in front of live crowds are going to be more likely to be the match of the years than matches that were
Yeah.
in front of, whether it's clap crowds in New Japan or a few people in Jacksonville, as opposed to live arena crowds. I remember when I did my list last year for Voice of Wrestling, like my top 10 matches of 2020. Like I think like 7 of my 10 matches happened between January and March, just because those were matches that in front
Right.
of crowds, and the other ones are like, I think every great match we saw during the pandemic era was really like, man, I wish this match would be even better if it was in front of a crowd. Um, but let's get started, because we got a lot of categories to. We're not going to do every category just because it would take too long, and some of the categories like best wrestling book and stuff. Like I have only read one wrestling book this year, so I'm not really going to like be able to go that in depth about it. So we're going to stick to mostly the major awards.
And
But
also just the major pro awards. Like you and I, we're not really big MMA fans as well. All the MMA categories and
right,
these awards as well.
yeah, right. You can vote because the Observer covers MMA too, so you can vote on the MMA awards too. But I don't. I know who wins the awards and stuff like that, but I'm not going to be like. And Dave's over the years, Dave has like mixed them. Like he used to have like the like best on interviews, like Conor McGregor won best on interviews a bunch of
Yeah.
times. It's like, well, I mean, I get, yeah, he's basically cutting wrestling promos, but it just seems weird to me to mix those up. And I liked he's over recent years, the Observers made them a little bit more separate, where you're voting for like, you know, different MMA and wrestling awards. But yeah, we're going to be sticking to the wrestling ones. That's a good point. So let's start at the top. I figure we'll start with the important awards, and then if we start running out lower on time, we can rush through the final awards if we don't get to them all. But I feel confident we can probably have good discussions on all of them. But let's start at the very top, the Ric Flair Luthes Award, which is essentially the MVP award. It's who you think was the best overall performer in wrestling in the year 2021. This is different than the most outstanding award, which I think a lot of people, for a long time, I was kind of confused about what the difference was, but most outstanding is purely looking at in-ring work and, technical ability and ability to have great matches. And the Ric Flair Award is kind of for everything. It's like, who do you think is the top performer of 2021 so far? And it should, I should also add, everyone is eligible for this award. Like, it's not like just North American wrestling or just men or anything like that. Pretty much everyone is eligible for all these awards. So we're not going to just be talking about like WWE or AEW in some cases. It's for every wrestling promotion. But the last three winners of the Ric Flair Award, Jason, are Jon Moxley last year. Before that, Chris Jericho. And the year before that, Kenny Omega. Really, this is an award that tends to go to somebody who was the world champion for a long period of time and kind of had, that just was on top of the company and was in all the main events for a long period of time. That's generally who wins this award. Jason, who do you have kind of as your pick or consequently the favorite to win the Ric Flair Award?
So for me, my favorite to win this award is Kenny Omega. Basically because like you said, like Kenny Omega, he's pretty much been the champion for 3 promotions basically for a very long time, for most of this year. And so that definitely helps his case for Wrestler of the Year. And obviously, he's become an even bigger name as well. He's really value, obviously since his AEW title win, but all throughout that, he's really become, I think more people are recognizing that he is the best wrestler in the world. I think before his big heel turn, his big AEW world title win, people were kind of just understanding, okay, Kenny Omega's good, but there's something missing here. I think now this year, we're really seeing that, okay, there isn't really anything missing. This is the Kenny Omega that we've been waiting for a very long time. And of course, 3 promotions see that case there.
Yeah, I mean, even when he was having his big years in Japan, you look at Kenny and, he would have like these really good matches in Japan. And he was when he won the IWGP championship and all that stuff. And he won this award back in 2018. But it's different seeing him every week on American television. That's just another level of it. And then you throw in, he's also on Impact and he's been going down to AAA and he's had a few matches down there. Looking forward, you got the match against Hangman Page. That's a huge match, huge program. You've got, Bryan Danielson or CM Punk maybe coming in. Forget about those are going to be huge matches. You got his match at Triple Mania. He's going to have against Andrade.
Yep.
He's going to main event Triple Mania. He's probably going to, main event a few more Impact pay-per-views.
Mm-hmm.
So he's my pick too. He's number 1 for sure. I have a ranking here. I'm trying to think of who else would even who's close to him as far as just the total package. My number 2 was Shingo Takagi, who has been, it's really hard for me for New Japan just this whole year. You got clap crowds, you got reduced attendance, you've got all sorts of COVID issues going on in and around the company. I think New Japan is usually a real stalwart on these awards in recent years. I don't have them as nearly as well represented as I have in years past. And like Shingo's been an excellent in-ring performer. He's had a bunch of really good matches. He won the world title, but he also kind of won the world title like kind of by default because it was supposed to be Will Ospreay's year. Will Ospreay got hurt. He leaves, and Shingo's kind of the guy there to win the title back. I also have Will Ospreay as 3rd because I think he's probably gonna not finish as 3rd. But if you just look at the first 6 months of the year, first 7 months of the year, it's hard to deny how great of a year he's had both in the ring. He's accomplished, started a new stable that's really been one of the only real highlights in New Japan in 2021. I know some people don't like Will Ospreay, but he's my number 3. And then I have Utami Hayashishita as my fourth. Stardom star. Again, it's kind of a similar thing to well, she's kind of interesting because it's hard to, Jason, who would you say is like the number one person in Stardom right now, all things considered? Like, who'd be
so interesting. It's kind of interesting to say Utami. I had Julia in that spot as well.
I guess I don't follow Stardom as closely as you do, because I was thinking about, okay, who's the real, is it Julia? Is it, I think Mayu Iwatani would be considered like the more like typical ace of the promotion, even though she really I think like Utami and Julia have had bigger years in certain ways. But yeah, so you had Julia and I had Utami, but I wanted to have someone that would represent the success that Stardom has had this year.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I guess to use a New Japan example, Mayu's kind of where Tanahashi is right now.
Yeah,
like Tanahashi's obviously still considering ace. Still, like he's basically in the undercard, basically. But still, like he can still draw. He can, still do big matches. And same with Mayu, like she can put on great matches, great performances, and all that. But yeah, she's not really in the title picture right now, and doesn't really seem to be anytime soon, since they're pushing their younger talent right now.
Yeah, or you can even say it's like a Okada, like like obviously still really good. Obviously he's had some great matches this year, but hasn't been pushed in the forefront. And this is an award that you kind of have to be like pushed at the very top of the company to get. This award doesn't go really to people who are like extremely good, but not main eventing shows or not getting world title runs. It's kind of, there's some kayfabe elements to this award that you really have to get. And then I have Jon Moxley as fifth. You can put in a lot of people, especially people in companies like, I would say AEW and Stardom, I would say it would be the two promotions where you can say that is a company that has had a lot of business success in 2021. WWE's made the most money for sure, but as far as like growing the company, looking at hitting benchmarks that you weren't hitting previously, Stardom and AEW, as far as promotions that run frequently, would be the two promotions that I'd be like, these are companies that are hitting business goals. And those are kind of what I often look at when it comes to this award.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, kind of like pretty much similar names, like Ospreay, Shingo. Those are obvious names. I had Gia instead of Utami because, like, she has main evented all shows that Utami has, especially earlier in this year. She main evented the Budokan show. She on the tag titles pretty much main evented over the world title. Went back when she's the current tag champions right now, and she and Shiri have really helped elevate those tag titles. And so I kind of put Julia in there since like her impact has really been felt more. And I guess I'm sure like what like the casual Stardom fan recognizes more, either Utami or Julia. But I think just in terms of booking, Julia is definitely much more on the higher plane that Utami is. But definitely maybe recency bias, I guess, the Utami Shiri match, maybe people will see Utami more as a higher star, but I think that was the kind of the point of booking there for that match, was to elevate Utami to the top of the company, more so than Julia, who's now more in the tag division. Yeah, and it's definitely an award where like you don't have to be great in-ring worker to get it, but it helps obviously a lot because it's the Ric Flair Luthes Award. Okay. It's going to go to people who know how to work for the most part, but moving on to the next one. This is most outstanding wrestler. Again, the difference between this one and the Ric Flair Award is this is purely looking at in-ring ability. And the last three winners of this award were Kenny Omega in 2020, and then Will Ospreay, and then Kenny Omega again in 2018. So it's been Kenny Omega's award. I did not pick Kenny Omega to win this award. I have him slotted in my number 3 slot. But Jason, who do you have right now as most outstanding wrestler? This one, I have Shingo in there. I think if you look at a lot of people's sort of early match of the year ballots, they have a ton of Shingo matches in there, all the way going from Wrestle Kingdom, I believe it's night 2 against Jeff Cobb. I think the Tanahashi Never Openweight title match, his series against Will Ospreay as well. I mean, I think Shingo would get the nod over Ospreay in this, since Ospreay's injured and Shingo has wrestled more matches. Of course, the Dominion match against Okada, where he won the title, has a great match as well. And so he's really put a lot more a longevity of work more so this year than Ospreay has. I think that's why Shingo would get the nod over Ospreay for me.
Yeah, I'm on the same wavelength as you because I have Shingo 1 and Will 2, and then Kenny 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, similar thing. Like one of the reasons I think this award helps favor New Japan wrestlers is because if you're a top guy in New Japan and you're in the G1, you're going to get a lot of chances to have like match of the year contenders because you're going to be working with a lot of top talent and you're going to be given all this time to have these great matches. I have Kenny Omega at 3, but I think a difference between like Kenny's year so far and Shingo's year when it comes to in-ring talent is just the opportunity Shingo has had to have so many great matches. He's main evented. He's having like basically he's getting 30 minutes on the main events at big shows to work with Will Ospreay, to work with Okada, to work with Hiroshi Tanahashi. Like he just is gonna be he just gets the opportunities, and that's not even getting into the G1 where he's probably gonna have he's probably gonna have like you couldn't tell me like he could have 5-star matches in the G1 alone.
Yeah, for sure.
Like depending on what his block is like. So I mean, he's definitely he's my choice. No one's had better matches than him. Will would be close. It'd be interesting if Will was healthy and we were seeing him like consistently because looking at my match of the year lists and looking at which matches I have with the highest ratings, like Will and Shingo are in like almost every single one of them.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting list. I also think that Ospreay's already won this award before, and that people, a lot of people, especially people who vote on these kind of awards, really like Shingo and want to see him rewarded because he's kind of been underrated for a lot of his career and because he's always been great. And him having the world title and him having getting this kind of run, I think a lot of people will be very happy to vote for him over someone like Kenny Omega or Will Ospreay, who have already won this award.
Yeah, I think the thing of Kenny Omega is that, like, while his matches have been exciting, I think it's just more showing his versatility. Obviously, with the death match and his recent match with Sami Callihan, I think it's just him trying to he can work any sort of hardcore style. Obviously, that doesn't really gel with everybody, but I think that's just him trying to show that, hey, I can do anything. That's why I'm the best wrestler in the world. I can work any sort of style, not just the big New Japan style or just this AEW main event style. I think that's just why he's more deserving wrestler of the year, or most outstanding, since like Kenny is really just trying to do something else with his career. While it is definitely really, really, really good, it's just sort of different than what Shingo's doing right now.
Yeah, and I think there is a real case for Kenny for this award. And the reason I say that is kind of what you touched on, which is that there's an element of versatility to his performance that you're not seeing with as good as Shingo is. And Shingo could probably do all of these things that Kenny is doing. Like Shingo could probably have an awesome death match if he wanted to. He could probably have an awesome lucha match if he wanted to. But it is an award about what you can do. It's about it's an award for what you have done. And there are elements to Kenny's performance that I think are much better than anyone else. I thought looking at his match against Jungle Boy, for instance, which I wouldn't say like that's not a better match than like Shingo's matches with Will Ospreay or Shingo's matches with Okada. But for what it was trying to accomplish, which was I'm a big star. I'm going to come in here. I'm wrestling this guy who's, significantly beneath me, but I'm going to make him look really good. I'm going to look really competent, look him like he's going to be a star. But in the end, I'm going to go over him and I'm going to establish myself as the dominant person in this company while also making this other guy look good. That is like, again, he's going to win. I voted for him for Ric Flair Award, but that is the Ric Flair idea, which is I am the best wrestler in the world. I'm going to come in. You are going to look good just pushing me, but I'm ultimately going to get myself over in the end as well by beating you. And to me, maybe that is really what the most outstanding wrestler should be. It should be someone who can do that kind of performance because that's probably the most valuable asset you can have as a wrestler. But I have him 3. I just think Shingo's resume of great matches is much higher. And then I have Ospreay as well. And then underneath him, I was thinking Okada's, kind of falling underneath the radar, but you look at his matches this year, you look at his matches at Wrestle Kingdom, his match against Ospreay. He had a tremendous match with Shingo Takagi. He's still Okada. When there's a big match, he's going to be great. I'm sure he's going to have a great G1. So I'm not sleeping on him. And then the fifth one I have, just to kind of mix things up, I chose Jonathan Gresham just because I find his work really interesting in Ring of Honor. I think that he's been able to really find something with this peer title and create this really interesting, exciting match structure based around technical wrestling and this kind of traditional, almost old-fashioned style of wrestling, but still like, with the right kind of pacing and psychology that makes it a really interesting match. So I wanted to give him a shout out. So I voted him as 5. Have you got anyone else you kind of considering that we haven't went over yet?
Um, something that is more just maybe for later that maybe he can impress is Jay White. He had his fantastic beginning of the year
Mhm.
with against Kota Ibushi. I personally really enjoyed that match that he had at Wrestle Kingdom. He kind of just waned off a little. I think maybe some of those were like just for various outside reasons. Obviously, the impacts right now, recruiting Chris Bay. He's kind of just doing this other sort of things right now. But I think once he gets going. David Finley match could be really good. He had a pretty good match at the New Japan Cup with Finley before, and so maybe if a crowd at Resurgence, maybe that could really help start his case for really having really good matches. Of course, he'll probably definitely be the G1 as well, and so definitely Jay White could always be a contender for this award, but just not right now with what he's done so far, but just more like maybe projecting in the future as he maybe continues to build more on his work.
Yeah, and I think that someone like Jay White, who's now got his hands in a lot of different pots, if he's going to be working New Japan, but he's also going to be working Impact, and he could show up on Dynamite. It wouldn't be surprising at all at this point. He's can go back and do the G1 if he can string together basically the best you can get in Japan and the best you can get in the United States. It will put him in a very interesting position in the ability to have a lot of different kind of great matches. So that's a good call. I like that one. Moving on to Tag Team of the Year. So this is some of these awards, as we'll get into, have been dominated by a few people over the last decade or so, and Tag Team of the Year is one of them. The Young Bucks won it in 2020. The Lucha Brothers won it in 2019, and then the Young Bucks won it in the 5 previous years since that. Mm-hmm. So over the last 8 years, the Young Bucks have won 7 of the last 8, I think, awards for Tag Team of the Year, with the Lucha Brothers win in 2019 being the only exception. And I'm not going to buck the trend. I think the Young Bucks are going to be the Tag Team of the Year this year, too. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, there really isn't really a lot of contenders, because obviously the last winner before the Young Bucks, Young Lucha Brothers, they didn't that often when Phoenix was hurt.
Yeah,
and
even more singles work this year. Yeah,
and even then, like, even when they were teams, it was very temporary tag teams. Like Kingston and Penta are now just teaming up. But before that, it was Moxley and Kingston. And while those Moxley and Kingston had a great Double or Nothing match, it was really much a short-lived tag team. Like there wasn't really a lot there to really consider them as tag team of the year. And so just and the only other team I considered was Dangerous. Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi. They put out. I've personally enjoyed most of their work over the past year, but even then, like the Young Bucks have just done. I think to rate on a scale, Young Bucks are like at a 10, but then Dangerous Tekkers are probably at like a 7. Basically, it's just really a far distance between two in terms of tag team of the year. Everyone else is just below all that because no tag team has really been around long enough and really put around enough cohesive work to really be a contender.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like anyone that's like, the Young Bucks, I don't think they're tag team of the year. That's like an immediately like a questionable person that has that take. I'm like, okay, well, you're really gonna have to sell me on why that's a reasonable decision to make, because A, they have the tag team titles, and B, they've had great matches. C, they're easily the most popular tag team in wrestling. Like, it's not even close. They're major draws.
Yep.
I think some people are, I don't know what to make of like some of the blowback to some people find them really annoying. Like on television and stuff. That's clearly the point, is they're heels now and they're really obnoxious. And I think that we're just at kind of the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what they can do in 2021, because I think they're going to have an excellent match. They're going to have an excellent match next week at the Fight for the Fallen show as part of the 5-on-5 elimination match. Like, I'm extremely confident the Young Bucks are going to have a great match there.
Yeah.
I think they'll have a great match at All Out, which looks like it will probably be against one of the Dark Order teams. But and here's the thing about the Young Bucks. To me, it doesn't matter if they face Evil Uno and Stu Grayson or they face John Silver and Alex Reynolds. It doesn't matter. I know that match is going to be great.
Yeah.
And then, if they get past them, then we're talking about another show after that. I think that, they got feuds. They could work with FTR again. They could work with Proud and Powerful. They can work with Varsity Blondes. They can work with Private Party again. They can work with maybe something going on with Kazarian. Maybe he teams with Daniels again. Maybe there's something happens where they get to team up again. I don't know. But I think there's so much that they can do this year, just in the ring. And we've already seen enough this year for me to feel really confident they're going to win. So the only team that I think has any chance of beating them this year is Proud and Powerful, because they've kind of been, I don't know if this is even really a rumor. It just seems like something that logically makes sense. So people start saying it, is that people think that Proud and Powerful will beat the Young Bucks at the Arthur Ashe show for the tag team titles.
Yeah.
Because that show's in New York City and AEW likes putting people over in their hometown, which is a shocking concept to WWE, but it's something that makes logical sense to anybody. And say Proud and Powerful, who have already had a very good year, say they beat the Young Bucks and get that huge kind of moment in New York City, and then they have a great rest of 2021 as the tag champions. Maybe I could see them finding their way in the conversation, but that's a lot of things have to break right for them to get to that level. And everyone else, I don't see it. I mean, you can point to a lot of people. I had FTR as my third ranked team. And even then, FTR, they've had good matches, but they haven't really blown me away. I just think they're a solid tag team, and their role in the Pinnacle is good. And then I have Dangerous Peckers. To touch on your point with Dangerous Peckers, they've been one of the most consistent acts in New Japan this year. And that's a company that's really needed consistency. And they've gone out there and they've main evented shows, a lot of these Road 2 shows or these different shows. And they've been like, guys, can you guys have a 25-minute match? You're the only thing interesting we have on this card. And, they've gone out and always done at least a solid job and sometimes a really great job. So I do think that they maybe have had, it's kind of hard because I think New Japan never really took their tag team wrestling super seriously, and they don't have a ton of teams, and it's kind of like getting old seeing the Dangerous Peckers, but I do think that they've achieved a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I kind of agree. Like Proud and Powerful and FTR, on your point, like I think everyone acknowledges they are good tag teams. It's just they've been too, like it's not. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, as a point, like they've been too mixed up into this whole Pinnacle Inner Circle feud.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really just been a lot of 5-on-5 or just segments, basically. Like we saw like last week. They've mostly just been involved in a lot of talking segments. They haven't really done anything in the ring. If they have, it's just on Dark or Elevation, which it's fine. It's just more just them working, just picking up wins. It's not really them building up resume for best of the year or so. But I think everyone does acknowledge, these are great tag teams, and eventually face the Young Bucks again. But they're just busy with this whole feud with the Inner Circle and Pinnacle.
Yeah, I think definitely with Proud and Powerful, I'm kind of like hedging my bets a little bit on thinking that they're going to have a big 2021, or a bit close to the year. But yeah, you're right. It hasn't. I mean, like for like they're in the Blood and Guts match or they're in the Stadium Stampede match. Like I consider that as like good tag team work, even though it's not like a regular 2-on-2 tag team match. But yeah, it's interesting the way like AEW has done its tag team division, where you have kind of the tag teams that are really good are almost absorbed in feuds that encompass more people. Like you see the same thing with the Young Bucks now as like the kind of elite, and they're going to be in this 5-on-5 match as opposed to the Young Bucks wrestling, Eddie Kingston, John Moxley again, or something like that. The last team I have, I just want to mention them real quick, is MSK. I think they've done really good work in NXT. I know that some people aren't huge fans of their work in NXT, but I think that they've come in and they've done nothing but perform really well in certain spots. And it's been a difficult time, I think, for them kind of coming in and getting a big push right away. And I think some of the loyal fans that are at these shows are kind of don't really appreciate that. But I think they've done a really good job this year.
Yeah, just to add for the Young Bucks points, PWG is coming back, and the tag titles are basically, I'm assuming, since MSK were the last PWG champions, and so by default, those titles are going to be vacant. Assuming WWE somehow makes up some crazy deal. I doubt that's going to happen.
No, I don't think MSK is going back to
just for one night for
to Excalibur and Super Dragons promotion.
Yeah, exactly. But possibly the Young Bucks could win the PWG tag titles and build their resume over there. And so it's a possibility. I'd say add even more to their resume.
Yeah, I mean, with PWG coming back, they're doing the Mystery Vortex show, so none of the names are announced in advance. But I'm interested in seeing like who from AEW shows up. We know that AEW talent can do indies. We haven't seen someone like the Young Bucks, I think, do any indie shows. Because they're big stars. You'll see like Joey Janela and some of the women talent do indie shows, but the big stars generally have not done a lot of indies. But I'll be interested to see because there's obviously a big connection between PWG and AEW.
Yep.
Moving on, best on interviews. This award is going to probably go to somebody in AEW, but your choice will be which person in AEW will get it. The last 3 years, Eddie Kingston last year, Chris Jericho, Daniel Bryan. I have a list of people here. All of them are from AEW. Jason, do you have you considered any non-AEW performer for this award?
I have not. No, I agree. AEW is, I think either Joe or Rich made this point. AEW is the promo promotion. Like, yes. It's all about promos over there. And so, yeah, I agree. Like, someone from AEW is going to win this award. Yes,
AEW. Now I can't remember if either Joe or Rich made it either. The Voice of Wrestling guys, we'll just give them credit.
Yes.
They said like AEW is more than anything a promo promotion, which is funny because when it first showed up, everyone just assumed it would be like a bunch of indie guys doing flips and stuff. And it wouldn't be like storytelling and promos. And that's literally like the best part of the promotion is the storytelling and the promos. But just thinking about like, I'm thinking of like WWE, it's so hard for people to be like great promos because they script everything and they have to use all this weird language. And even people that have like great deliveries like Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe, they're always handicapped by their like having to use these buzzwords, not being allowed to use certain words and having to work around WWE's booking, which is hard. If I were to pick some people that weren't in AEW, I would say Jay White, who's not in AEW yet, is a very good talker. I thought he was really good earlier in this year when he was kind of getting over his like desperation character. I thought he was great in like the press conference after Wrestle Kingdom, where he basically just said he was going to retire. But this is an award for AEW people. My top 5 here, I have Jason. I have MJF as my pick to win it, then followed by Jon Moxley, Chris Jericho, Don Callis, and Dr. Britt Baker. Who have you been thinking about?
Yeah, so Don Callis was your third, right?
Fourth.
So that's interesting. I have Don Callis as number 1 for me. And then I had Chris Jericho, MJF, and I just did a top 3. I did like 5.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
3. Yeah, so that's my top 3. Don Callis, Chris Jericho, MJF.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess for Don Callis, why I have one is I think it just coincides with my wrestler, Kenny Omega. I think those two are just, as a tandem act, they're very great. I think just recently now, Kenny Omega is doing a lot more mic work, but Don Callis is doing the majority of the mic work for everyone in, I guess, the super elite or the elite, whatever they call themselves.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he's done a lot of great heel work, especially when he does a commentary as well. It's all fantastic heel work. Callis, and so I think that's why I have him as my number 1.
Yeah, I mean, Don Callis he's definitely the entire impetus for the heel change in both Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and that whole group is Don Callis's personality.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. And so I think, if he wins, what an achievement for him, going from where he was a few years ago, which I think was out of the business, to, getting back through the New Japan gig, and that, going to Impact and having some creative decision making there, which he then used to kind of get into AEW in a way. And now he's back on it. So yeah, there's so many choices within AEW. I mean, Ricky Starks, Taz, Cody. There's just a lot of really, really good promo people in the company. The reason I think I went with MJF is because I just feel like his personality is so based on his talking. And the other guys who were good promos and everything, I just feel like every time he talks, he's interesting. His delivery is great. His content is great. The way he his wit, his ability to react to stuff, whether it's someone yelling at him in the crowd, whether it's he's on commentary. Like, he was so great on commentary this week, which I guess really is different than promos because you're on commentary, but it's the same kind of thing. Just that sharp wit, that ability to react instantly to things, the ability to interact with different people. It's just so top notch, and he's probably going to win this award a lot throughout his career. But I went with him here too, but there's so many choices within AEW that it's hard to go wrong.
Yeah, I think there's more of a personal preference to me. It's just like, I think MJF can get too insidery to me, just referencing inside stuff. That's just a personal preference. Yeah, I'm not really the biggest fan of that. But yeah, I do agree. Like his ability to react, like when that fan came in, and then he reacted right away. He's like, "Hey, you fat marks want to come here and fight me? Yo, come do it." Like, I thought that was fantastic right there to react to that fan coming in. And it showed to me like, oh, a fan ran in because I didn't know what was going on. It's just an error at that time.
Yeah, and that's kind of a lot of how AEW does their promos. Is they're not scripted out in advance. They maybe go over some stuff a little bit, but a lot of it's just you react to what the guy is saying. And he's gone in there, he's done this long feud with Chris Jericho, who is one of the best promos ever, without question.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gone over there and he's right there with him, or even outshining him at times when it comes to promo ability. And, there's very few people that can do that. Chris Jericho, you can go back. One of the feuds that's good to look back on is like a 2009 feud between Chris Jericho and John Cena. And Jericho kind of eats Cena up on the mic. And Cena's an amazing promo in his own right. So for someone to come out and be able to be just as sharp, just as keen as Jericho, it takes a really special talent. And he knows that, and we all know that. So I'm not reiterating anything by saying that he's a special talent, but he'd be my choice. Flipping the page over here to we're going to get away a little bit from individual awards, and here, this one is promotion of the year. So the last year it was won by AEW, and then for the previous 8 years, from 2012 to 2019, New Japan Pro Wrestling won it. So it's been basically a New Japan award for most of the recent history, with the exception of AEW coming in last year. I have AEW as number one this year. Jason, do you have something different than that?
No, but I will say shout out to Stardom.
Stardom is my number two.
Yeah, just like AEW is probably gonna win this award, but just shout out to Stardom for having a great year. They've been really doing a lot of growth. They've seen a lot of more subscribers to the world and just more attention from the wrestling world. Like, I'm seeing a lot more wrestling websites covering Stardom more so than past years, and that really shows how much they've grown into the sort of mainstream wrestling audience.
Yeah, and I talked about that earlier. Kind of Stardom and AEW are the two companies that we can see really hitting business goals this year for a lot of different reasons. And I think that's ultimately really what promotion of the year can be about, is who is hitting business goals. Obviously, again, WWE, if it was whoever made the most money this year, WWE wins this award every single year, probably into perpetuity. But when looking at just quality of content, like Stardom's had a great year from a quality standpoint. Yes, they've
Yeah.
gotten more popular. Yes, they've, been able to run bigger venues, which is amazing even during the pandemic. They've been able to do more pay-per-views. They get more interest from outside of Japan. But to just, they've had great matches. They've had characters that resonate with the public. They've been able to get new fans. And that's ultimately what your goal should be as a promotion, is to create new fans and to create content that they want to pay to see. And they're seeing really good returns on that. And you can say the same thing about AEW. Just looking at, you can just look at the awards we've talked about. We've been talking about AEW people for nonstop, and AEW won almost every single one of these awards last year. And there was a whole thing after that. It's like, oh, Dave's biased for AEW. They won every award, but I'm not like trying to mark out for AEW here. I'm just looking at it logically, like who should I consider for these awards? And it just AEW people come up because for three reasons. First, the content is very good in AEW. They have good matches, they have good promos, they have good storylines. The second is that they have a great platform. They're on TV every week. They're, get headline news coverage on every single wrestling website. They're everywhere. It's not like some obscure indie that you really need to dig into to to see the quality of it. And the third is that in relationship to a lot of these other promotions, they're doing it's been kind of a down year, especially during the pandemic for a lot of these things. I have New Japan as my 5th ranked promotion this year. And I love New Japan, and New Japan has dominated this award category, but you can't look at New Japan's 2021 and be like, yeah, things are going great in New Japan. They've got a bunch of issues, both with COVID, they've had roster turnover, they've got, Jay White and Will Ospreay are not on the continent right now for different reasons, but it's been a really weird year for New Japan. You can't look at their year as a business success, as their business has really been hurt by the pandemic. I just don't see New Japan as a viable candidate for this award, even though they've had some really good stuff and they've had some really good matches, and they'll always have good matches. That's never going to be a problem. But I don't see them as like this. I mean, they're not on my number 2. I got Stardom as number 2, and then I went with Ring of Honor and Dragon Gate just because I've liked what those promotions have been able to do this year. But I mean, they're not on my radar screen. Obviously, WWE isn't, but I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's the big thing, right? It's the pandemic, and it's really affected most promotions, basically. Outside of WWE and AEW, who have they have set contracts with these big TV deals, and so obviously AEW has an obligation to fulfill those TV deals, be on TNT every week, and so they do that, and they have this big platform, and that really helps them very much to get that big attention out there. A promotion like Ring of Honor, they're on Fight TV. Like Fight TV, it's a pretty big streaming service, but still, it's pretty limited in scope in terms of reach, and so like that's really gonna hurt how much people are gonna know about Ring of Honor.
Yeah, the Ring of Honor stuff's weird because they'll tell you, oh, like, 1 million people watch Ring of Honor because it's on all these regional hubs. But
Yeah, exactly.
What I think hurts Ring of Honor a lot from a buzz standpoint is that, like, you can watch like at a set time, like on their website, but it's on different markets, it's on different days and different time periods. So it's not like, okay, Thursday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. Ring of Honor is on, and people are going to be online, doing live coverage and tweeting about it and that kind of thing. It's more like you kind of watch Ring of Honor whenever you want because it's on at all these different time periods throughout, depending on what region you're in or when people feel like they want to load up the website and watch it. But when I watch Ring of Honor this year, I see a company that has tried really hard to establish new talent. They've tried different things. I was a huge fan of their last pay-per-view show when I watched it this past week, Best in the World. I thought they had a great variety of different talent that was wrestling. They had a bunch of different styles of matches. They had a live crowd for the first time in a while. It just was really good pro wrestling. So I've liked what they've done in 2021. Dragon Gate hasn't had like the kind of blow away year that they've been able to have. They haven't had a ton of like match of the year contenders that they've had in the past. They're really big on pushing new young talent, like Sean Skywalker has been their champion for a while this year. And but again, they're in Japan. It's a tough beat in Japan with clap crowds, with reduced capacity for shows. Hard to tell if some of these new guys like Shun Skywalker and his unit Masquerade are over really. So I haven't really thought. So I had them fourth. I think some people will say they've been a bit better than that. Some people maybe a bit worse, but I'm pretty confident that's my top 5 is accurate.
Yeah, for sure.
Best TV show. So this is your best weekly TV show. So mostly the times these are awards that Dynamite, Raw, SmackDown. That's generally what you're looking at. Things like internet TV shows are actually eligible. So AEW Dark or BTE or Sammy Guevara's vlog are eligible for these awards. And I know BTE has finished quite high in a few years. Dynamite has won this award the last 2 years, and then NXT won it in 2018. Jason, who did you pick as for best weekly television show?
I picked Dynamite again. Like
yes.
Like you said, this award favors the Raws, the Dynamites, and SmackDowns more so than like the internet TV shows. But yeah, if compared to SmackDown and NXT, Dynamite is far and above better than those. NXT, it's better than Raw and SmackDown, but better than Dynamite, and that served my reasoning for that. The two other shows that I highlighted was NJPW Strong.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very solid hour of wrestling, basically. Like, I don't really have a lot of complaints about NJPW Strong. I think they're going to be TV tapings next month, and so they'll actually introduce fans to that show. That'll be exciting to watch with that atmosphere for fans. Tom Lawler is a very fun champion for that show there. And my third one was our Stardom. This is a show that I saw that did get votes last year, and so I guess it is eligible. For those who don't know, it's basically like what New Japan was in Access, where they would just highlight a match like every week, and that's what basically We Are Stardom is. It's basically a show that highlights a big Stardom match every week, and so I just include that in there because just more shout out to Stardom.
Yeah, no, and the companies that are producing good content are going to be the companies that fare well on this. And look, Dynamite's just an easy watch every week for the most part. Even the episodes of Dynamite that are like, that wasn't really the best episode of Dynamite are still generally easy to watch shows that the time goes by relatively fast and usually have a few good things on them, even if it has some segments or matches that didn't land. Like, I didn't even think this Dynamite on Wednesday was like any great shakes. Like, I was kind of like thought it dragged at certain times, but then I'm like, well, the first match was really good. And then the Kenny Omega Hangman Page kind of thing at the end of, I thought that was really good. The main event was great. And it's like, it wasn't really one of the best Dynamites, but still has a lot of good stuff that I really enjoy on wrestling television. It's such an easy show to watch. So again, AEW wins another category. Look, and you can say we're marks if you want, but this is what the results are going to be like, I think, in the Wrestling Observer Awards. And I think anyone that watches wrestling outside of WWE is probably going to feel relatively similar to how we feel about AEW cleaning up on a lot of these awards. I did have New Japan Strong as number 2. Studio wrestling, no crowds, but as hard of as New Japan has had, as it feels like New Japan has fallen a little bit in quality from the glory years in the last decade, New Japan Strong's a really good show. It's really well booked. The matches all make sense, and they've done a really good job with a really diverse array of talents that they've been able to use. They will use some New Japan based US based New Japan talent, like the Gorillas of Destiny and Jay White and Rocky Romero and those kind of talents. And then they've got their American young lions like Clark Connors and Alex Coughlin and Carl Fredericks. I know some of those guys have graduated from young lion status, but are still basically the same. And they're able to bring in veterans like TJP. They've brought in indie guys like Wheeler Utah. They've brought in just like literally random people like Fred Rosser, and they've worked out really well for them. It's a good show. It's so easy to watch. And like it's like I said, if you like just like very logical, easy to watch wrestling, it's up there. I also had Ring of Honor weekly TV. Same thing I said in the last category about just Ring of Honor's, I think, uptick in quality. And then I had NXT. NXT gets, I think, a lot of flack for maybe not being as good as it once was. For since it's gone to USA, since it's gone to 2 hours, since they've kind of had to push the same people for a number of years, but still has a lot of good matches, still has a lot of good stuff on their show. So I think it deserves, to place in this award. I don't watch the We Are Stardom show, so I couldn't really comment on that. But I believe if it's just showing the best of Stardom, then it's going to be a good show. And then I also had Impact. Impact's not great to me, but finishing fifth, it's better than Raw and SmackDown, which is again not saying much, but I chose that. And BTE's eligible for this, but like, yeah, I'm not going to vote for BTE on these things, even though I generally find it pretty entertaining.
And then you have other shows like MLW Fusion.
Mm-hmm. I never watch. MLW is my biggest blind spot in wrestling. I've never watched a single match of it.
Yeah, I agree. I catch it like every once in a while. Like if there's a big match, like Fatu and Tankman, I watch that match. But that's really it for MLW.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's nothing against MLW. I just have never made the time to kind of commit to it because I'm just constantly behind in stuff I want to watch. I'm sure they have a lot of good stuff on their shows. I hear about it and stuff. And like you said, Jacob Fatu is a really good talent. Calvin Tankman, Hammerstone. They do a great job with bringing in all sorts of different kind of like lucha guys from Mexico. They give the show a totally different flavor.
And they got Davey Richards now.
Davey Richards is on the show. I might have to tune in. Match of the year. We talked about this a little bit earlier as far as like when crowds come back, or crowds coming back will probably influence this award. We also have the G1 coming up, and who knows what we could see out of that. But match of the year, last 3 years, Kenny Omega in Hangman Page versus the Young Bucks at AEW Revolution. The year before that, Shingo versus Will Ospreay at the Best of Super Juniors final. And the year before that, Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada at the famous 2 out of 3 falls match where Kenny Omega won the title for the first time. Jason, what is your match of the year at this present moment?
So far, my match of the year is the Utami Hayashishita versus Shiri match at I only wrote the day. I forgot what the show is called.
Cinderella.
It's the Tokyo Cinderella.
Yeah.
The June 12th show, where basically the match, I think a cage match. They parents say it's a double knockout. Basically what it was, a draw that also went to overtime, basically a 15-minute overtime. It's just fantastic storytelling, really good drama there. I think it's really glad to see the English commentary as well, where Stuart Fulton, I think he really did a job at really hiding the drama and the stakes for the match. I think that really I'm sure that must have helped for non-Stardom viewers to really understand all the stories going into that match and all the stakes as well. It's really fantastic stuff.
Yeah, it's probably the overall biggest match in Stardom history, not just related to its quality, but just how much buzz it got Stardom and how people started talking about it. And that helps a lot in these kind of awards. I mean, on Wrestling Observer Radio, Brian and Dave talked about it like multiple episodes, because like one episode Dave saw is like, Brian, you got to watch this, and then the next episode Brian's like, I watched it, here's what I thought about it, and it kind of kept it in the news. And if I'm Stardom, I think they should put it out on YouTube for free eventually, because it is that kind of match. It is not my number one match of the year. This was when I was looking at my spreadsheet of matches. I have 5 matches that I gave 5 stars to, so it's very easy. It was very easy for me to come up with a list of 5. But my number one is Jay White versus Kota Ibushi from Wrestle Kingdom Night 2. Jason, you mentioned that was one of your favorite matches of the year as well. Again, I almost want to rewatch it, because I remember after I watched it, I was like, this is one of the very, very best matches I've ever seen. What an incredible conquest by Kota Ibushi to have this epic match on the final match of Wrestle Kingdom. After beating Naito the previous night, really came everything full circle for Kota Ibushi. Since then, his year has been a complete disaster. But I remember watching that match and being like, this is one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. This is what happens with Wrestle Kingdom. It happened so early in the year that it's kind of hard to like remember how great it was by the end of it. So you almost always have to go back and rewatch it. So before we get to the end of the year, I will rewatch it. I will say it might be tough if it's, having watched crowds that can make noise and then going back and watching the clap crowds at Wrestle Kingdom, that might be difficult. But outside of that, I have, the 2 Shingo versus Will Ospreay matches, the one at Dontaken, which might actually win that one. That was the one where Ospreay beat Shingo. And then their other one that they had, New Japan Cup, that's also in the mix. Shingo versus Hiroshi Tanahashi at the New Beginning in Nagoya. And then I have Okada versus Ospreay at Wrestle Kingdom Night 1. Not really breaking any new ground with saying those matches are really good. The one match I will add as kind of a bonus match, because I will say the Shuri versus Hayashita match is also up there. But the one match I will add is a match that a lot of people probably haven't seen, but it is Aussie Open versus the Velocities from Pro Wrestling Australia Black Label, which is not easily available unless you want to buy the show. It's not like it's on YouTube or anything. It is a really, really great tag team wrestling match. It's in Australia where they were allowed to make noise because they did a better job handling the virus than most people. And just really, really excellent match. It's very long, but there's so much happening. It's like the great indie style match. There's Aussie Open are like the big physical tag team that are chucking these guys, the Velocities, around because the Velocities are small, flippy guys. And it's just a great wrestling match. And it's like going to be it's going to be like probably the best match that a lot of people don't see. Just because it's not in a major promotion or even like a semi-major promotion, and it's not easily watchable. But if you want to, buy the show, I think it might be available on Fight. Like it's going to be worth your time because it's a really excellent match.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree. It'll probably be a match that makes some people's top fives, top tens list. But yeah, I agree. Unless they find a way to put it on YouTube, I doubt anyone will actually see it. I guess back in the Stardom thing, I think might be a rights issue of why they don't put matches on YouTube, kind of thing. I don't know what the same thing about the Australian, the Aussie Open match. I don't know if they have a rights issue there, but yeah, if they can find a way to get the match up on free on YouTube or some other platform, like any kind of way, maybe Vimeo, whatever, that'd be definitely beneficial to get that match out there to more eyes.
Yeah, definitely. It's and that happens a lot with match of the years, depending on no matter it all depends on who you ask and what kind of promotions they follow and what kind of promotions they like. Because some people maybe only watch WWE, some people maybe only watch AEW, and they're not always going to see. If you don't like, all my matches my top 5 are all Japanese matches, and then even if you were to look at my top 10 or top 15, a lot of matches in Japan. AEW hasn't had that blowaway match to me yet. It might be coming. If the explosion went off at the match at Revolution, the exploding barbed wire match, then maybe like that match would have been like considered this. But to me, they haven't had like that, oh my God, amazing match. I think the closest I've seen would be the Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa match, which was just such an interesting, different match for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, so I'm gonna try to pick up the pace here because we got a few more, and we're already going long on this thing. But we're gonna switch to the stylistic awards. So we'll start with the famously named. This is a really funny story. The Bryan Danielson Award, which is for the best technical wrestler. Now, this award used to be called Best Technical Wrestler. When Daniel Bryan had to retire from wrestling, Dave changed it to the Bryan Danielson Award because Bryan Danielson had won it 9 times. He'd won it from every year from 2005 to 2013. So it made sense to name the award after him. But of course, he came back and is now a wrestler. So it's kind of weird that the award is named after a active wrestler.
Sure.
The funnier thing about that is that Daniel Bryan comes back and never wins this award again. Zack Sabre Jr. has won this award 7 straight years. He's won it every year since 2014. So since 2000, the last person to win this award, I'll ask you, Jason, who do you think the last person to win this award was that was not Zack Sabre Jr. or Daniel Bryan?
Wow. I looked at this. I forgot who it was. I'm just going to guess Kurt Angle.
It was Chris Benoit in 2004.
Right. Chris Benoit. Okay.
So this is an award that's only had 2 winners since 2004. Daniel Bryan from 2005 to 2013, 9 straight years, and then Zack Sabre Jr. from 2014 to 2020. Jason, are you breaking the streak here? Are we adding a new name here? Who is your best technical wrestler award winner?
I would say you are adding a new name. It's someone you mentioned before. It's Jonathan Gresham, current pure champion in Ring of Honor, and I guess semi-tag. He did compete in a tag match, and actually no, he's whatever. But he's the pure champion right now. He's showing off his technical skills and just doing very unique stories right now, all based on his abilities and his skill level. It's very fantastic. Of course, Zack Sabre Jr. has always been doing work as well, like we mentioned before. Dangerous Techers have been one more consistent parts of New Japan, and so he definitely deserves a shout out. But I think Jonathan Gresham deserves some type of recognition for the kind of year he's having. That's why I think he should win the Best Technical Award.
Mm-hmm. And so obviously it's really hard to beat someone like Zack Sabre Jr. because he's won it so many years in a row. He's just synonymous with high quality technical wrestling. And more importantly, what this award seems to be, it's kind of a weird award to give out because what is technical wrestling? Is it a guy that just does a lot of holds and submission holds, or is it someone who's just fundamentally super, super good at pro wrestling? And that could be, you could have a high flyer that's great at technical wrestling. You could have a brawler that's great at technical wrestling. Some of these stylistic awards, especially now as so many people use so many different styles now within the ring, it's kind of hard to differentiate between the two. But my kind of approach to it is who is getting the most out of technical wrestling. And for years and years, it's always been Zack Sabre Jr. because he had such a pretty style, and he was, pushed relatively decently in New Japan, and you could see him work this style. But I think Gresham has done enough this year to supersede him for exactly the reasons you said. The pure title, putting together this whole type and style of wrestling, totally based around his technical wrestling ability and getting that over. For him to, like, his personality in Ring of Honor and his presence in Ring of Honor is that he's like this completely dominant, unbeatable champion. And he's like 5'4". Like, he is physically not someone that should be presented as being super, super dominant. But because he's such a good technical wrestler, because he's doing this specific style, and because the matches have to be done this style, he has gotten himself over as this guy who is this, he's basically like an unstoppable monster wrestler. But he, again, if you look at Jonathan Gresham, it's not like he's Braun Strowman size, right? And I think that's a testament to his ability and his commitment to getting this over. So not only am I saying he's my pick to win the award, Jason, I am leading the charge for him to win this award. After I watched his match with Mike Bennett at Best in the World, I said on Twitter, it's hard to do it when you're in a smaller promotion, and Ring of Honor is a smaller promotion than New Japan. But I think this is the year Jonathan Gresham can beat Zack Sabre Jr. for the Best Technical Wrestler Award. And my tweet got a lot of traction. Jordan Grace, Jonathan Gresham's wife, retweeted it saying, the man who resurrected pure wrestling should definitely win the award. I'm starting this. I'm on ground zero. If he wins the award, I want some sort of credit for being his campaign leader here, because someone probably said it before me, but we got to start thinking about things now, because I think a lot of people are going to get their ballots at the end of the year, and they're going to be like, best technical wrestler. I don't know, Zack Sabre Jr. He wins every year because it's always a safe choice. Write down Jonathan Gresham this year today. Write down Jonathan Gresham this year, folks, because I think he really deserves it. Other people like Kenny Omega, who is Kenny Omega a great technical wrestler? Like, yeah, he obviously is. He's not really considered one because he's just wrestles such a varied style. TJP, I have as number 4, who's another New Japan strong guy who is I would say is definitely like a really technical wrestler. He wrestles a very similar kind of submissions based style. And I put in Shingo because, I mean, you can put Shingo in for literally any award, and I think he should win it. So maybe not what people think of when you think of like technical wrestling, like the same way like they think of Zack Sabre Jr., but a guy fundamentally who's just really excellent at pro wrestling.
Yeah, I think maybe for a women's wrestler, maybe Shiri. She definitely wrestles a great technical style as well. I have
Shiri coming up in a different award category, but
okay, yeah, but yeah, obviously former UFC fighter, and so definitely implements those MMA tactics within her style of wrestling, mixing in regular so Joshi style and sort of other styles as well, mixed with her MMA background.
Yeah, another woman, Serena Deeb, definitely does a lot of the technical stuff.
Yep.
Moving on, the Bruiser Brodie. the Bruiser Brodie Award. The Bruiser Brodie Award, obviously, is for best brawler since it's called the Bruiser Brodie Award. Again, this is somewhat similar to the technical wrestling award, where I feel like people have so different styles now that it's hard to figure out like who can you qualify as a brawler necessarily. John Moxley won this award last year, which ended a 6-year run from Tomohiro Ishii, who won it from 2014 to 2019. I have Moxley winning again this year, but it's kind of an open award. I feel like a lot of people can win it this year.
Yeah, I had either Moxley or Eddie Kingston, because Eddie, like, I don't know, like Eddie's kind of a brawler, but kind of isn't as well. I just maybe just the aesthetics of a brawler, maybe. That's really yeah, like you said, like everyone has a varied sort of unique styles. They mix in a bunch of stuff as well, and so yeah, it's really hard to tell like who's a true brawler in the sense. But yeah, I had Moxley number 1 and Kingston number 2.
Yeah, I mean, my approach to it was kind of like, when I think of a brawler now, there's not like a ton of like the Bruiser Brodie types out there, or like, Bruiser Brodie or Stan Hansen or Mick Foley, or these people who have won the award a lot in the past. It's kind of a award that goes to, I mean, Ishii's clearly one because Ishii basically just punches people the entire time, but I kind of like to summarize it as someone who's like really just a great striker in general. It's not necessarily someone who's always having like these wild brawls into the stands and stuff. So I have Moxley as number 1, who does kind of encompass that kind of brawling style. But outside of that, I went with a lot of people who are more like strikers than I would say like straight up brawlers. But
okay,
I think that I have Kano as number 2 from Pro Wrestling Noah. I have Masakai Mochizuki from he's wrestled for Noah, but he's mainly a Dragon Gate guy. I have Shuri as a brawler. I know you have her as technical wrestler, but I feel like you could do that too, but I feel like a lot of her work comes from kicks and strikes and similar.
Yeah, for sure.
Similar kind of vibe. Again, the legitimacy helps with that. And number 5, I have Jake Lee. A similar kind of thing as like Kano or someone like that. Just like a guy who does a lot of good looking strikes and stuff like that. That's kind of how I mix up this. Like I said, there's not like a ton of people. Like you could say like Nick Gage, because it is kind of an award that's about like aura and charisma and less about like actual ability to work. Like Necro Butcher has won this award before. It's kind of for just someone who comes across like a really big tough guy. It is in some ways the purpose of the award. So you could go that route as well.
Yeah, for sure. He's got a match against Chris Jericho next week, and so that could definitely help his case for this award, maybe.
Nick Gage coming on Dynamite. I don't even really like Nick Gage that much, but him coming on Dynamite was just such a ridiculously unexpected moment. As soon as MJF was like, I'm bringing in the most violent man in the history of this business, I actually was like, is he bringing in Nick Gage? Because like it was kind of clear he was bringing in someone that hadn't been in the company before, and it's like,
right.
I don't know who you can bring in. And then he's like, this is a man who once cut a man in the jugular with a piece of glass. I'm like, oh shit, it's Nick Gage. And then he just fucking walks out. It's like, I'm like, what the fuck is happening? It's like I'm through the looking glass here when it comes to some of the stuff that happens on AEW, just because it's so unexpected. But moving on, you got 2 more here. Everyone hold on. Best Flyer. This to me is a more like obvious award than best brawler and best technical wrestler. Just because I think it's kind of easier to differentiate who's a high flyer than other facets.
Yeah, for sure.
Ray Phoenix won this award last year, and then Will Ospreay had won it for four straight years in 2016, 2019. So again, we're kind of coming off of a thing. It's kind of becoming a thing you can see here in these awards, is that like someone from New Japan dominated these awards, and then someone from AEW beat them last year. Like we saw with best promotion, New Japan won 1,000,000 years, then AEW won last year. And then you see like for best brawler, Ishii won for 1,000,000 years. John Moxley, beat him this year. Best Flyer, Ospreay won for 1,000,000 years. Ray Phoenix beat him. I will say that my winner is not a New Japan wrestler, nor is he an AEW wrestler, but I will let Jason go first.
I'll let you go first because I have the same answer as you. I know I have a feeling I know who you're talking about. I've seen you talk about this before.
I'm talking about El Hijo del Vikingo.
Yes.
Who I don't know how many people know about him. I don't know if enough people know about Vikingo yet for him to win this award. I think Other people said that like Ray Phoenix had won the award. Because again, Phoenix Wrestling for Dynamite being on that platform obviously helps. Vikingo has been a mainstay in AAA in Mexico. There's been all sorts of stuff for the past year about trying to get him to America, trying to get him on Dynamite. I think there's been a visa issue. It's hard during the pandemic to get that stuff cleared up. But the presumption is that he's going to be in America relatively soon. But if you're unfamiliar with Vikingo, I highly recommend typing his name into YouTube or typing his name into Twitter, because you will see some awesome stuff. He's just like the next generation of great high flyers. He just does really complicated stuff, makes it look really easy. It almost always looks super clean. He's not botching stuff. Because a lot of times you'll see that, like, especially on the indies and stuff, you'll see someone who can maybe athletically do these spots, but they're not always clean. They're kind of just too ambitious. Vikingo can literally do like anything. He can do like, he could jump up the air and do like 75 flips and like make it look good. Like he really is really incredible. Every time he like, if he gets a tag into a match and he gets into the ropes, like there's almost nothing more interesting to watch, because he's just going to string together like these incredibly complicated moves. He also wrestles wearing like this ridiculous Viking outfit where he's like wearing like these things like tufts of fear. He's like almost like a full, not like a full bodysuit like he's Giant Gonzalez, but like he's wearing like a whole top and bottom ensemble with like tufts of fur, like he's a Viking, but he's still doing, which can't be like the most athletic stuff to be wearing. I don't know how he's able to do it, but to me, he is the obvious choice to win this award.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, it's perfect. He overcomes his gear. That's why he's so great. You imagine if you didn't have the gear.
Yes.
It's like an anime, you know, like the whole cliche of like wearing body weights to cover how strong you are. I mean, who knows how powerful Vikingo can be if he takes off those weights.
Yes,
he can even be a better high flyer.
He's jumping like 4 extra feet in the air because he's not wearing a 25-pound ring gear. But yeah, he's great. I mean,
and he's only 24 years old. It's insane.
Well, this is a young man's award, because
sure.
You look at some of the people who have won this award in the past. Will Ospreay, Kota Ibushi, Ricochet, obviously great high flyers, and still to this day, all great high flyers. But as they've gotten older, have become like more varied in their wrestling style. A lot, we've seen a lot with Ospreay, you know, using more power moves, using more striking, using more technical wrestling, not just relying on doing a bunch of flips and stuff like that. And Best Flyer is an award that is basically about who can do the most flips and land them. And so I always feel like it's kind of a young man's award, and it's something you kind of almost like graduate out of. Like one day Vikingo might be like just an amazing overall worker as opposed to just an amazing flyer. And then he won't, you know, necessarily be so reliant on the flying. But look, this is an award for whoever is just like a fucking awesome flyer. So I don't like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm criticizing the people who win it. It's a young man's award. It's an award you can do, you get when you haven't taken 4 million bumps and haven't broken your neck yet. And so my 5, El Hijo del Vikingo, then I have Ray Phoenix, then I have Will Ospreay, just because I just don't think Ospreay is like the same kind of flyer as he once was at his peak, but he's still obviously high quality. I've got Pac, who might be still up there, but he just doesn't wrestle as much because of, you know, the circumstances of him having to come back between the UK and the US to wrestle. And then on number 5, I have Dragon Lee.
Yeah, for sure. I don't really have much to add. I think for Vikingo, I think Triple Mania is coming up, and so maybe, you know, usually that's the most traction AAA gets in a year, is a Triple Mania show. Event. Yeah, especially so. And so I think maybe, you know, after seeing that, his name might be in discussions a bit more. But yeah, as of right now, I think he's still under the radar. But I think once Triple Mania comes, I think maybe then, you know, people will start to say, "Oh, have you seen this little guy?" You'll see more gifs shared of him.
Yeah, he's like a very gifable wrestler because he's just doing crazy stuff all the time. And I think, yeah, it's only a matter of time before everyone finds out about him. And he's on, I think he's going to be like, he could be on Dynamite almost any week now, because I know that they've been really keen on bringing him in. They brought in Laredo Kid a few times. I believe they brought in Laredo Kid because they couldn't bring in Vikingo. Like Vikingo doesn't have the visa and Laredo Kid did. But yeah, people are going to find out about him soon. And yeah, he's just an excellent high flyer, and he's been excellent high flyer for a few years now. It's not like he just came on the scene, but you know, AAA doesn't have a huge traction in the United States. AAA isn't super well known. So, but eventually people will know who he is. this final award, the Rookie of the Year award, which is always the most confusing award that is given out. And the reason that is because it has a really evolving standard for what it's supposed to mean. Now, in the Observer, the idea is the Rookie of the Year is someone who is making a major promotion debut that year. And so it doesn't have to be someone who literally had their first match in the rookie year. But it just kind of, so like kind of, it can be someone who's had experience if they just got onto a bigger stage, but there's no real definition of what a major promotion is. We were talking about this offline, like Jungle Boy won it in 2019, but Jungle Boy had wrestled for a few years on the independents. He had wrestled in PWG before he kind of came to AEW. So he wasn't really a rookie, but I guess AEW was the first major promotion he was in. So therefore he was a rookie. But at that point, you can use that argument and say like Eddie Kingston was a rookie last year, even though he's been wrestling for 20 years. Like, it's really weird. I try to just stick to who kind of had their first match this year, because that's ultimately who we know for a fact is going to be eligible. And then going from there, it's a really interesting award. If you go back and look at it historically, it's got a lot of people where you're just like, wonder whatever happened to that person. It doesn't have a ton of people who were like, whoa, that person was great. Even its history, the last 3 years is weird. Pat McAfee won this award last year. Jungle Boy won the award the year before that, and then Ronda Rousey won the year in 2018. In regards to Pat McAfee, like I think you have to have more than 2 matches to win this award. Like you have to be kind of like a real wrestler and not just like a celebrity doing matches, even though he was really good. Jason, do you have any idea who you're going to vote for Rookie of the Year?
Well, I kind of went the same lines of you, of just sticking to like the actual definition of a rookie. And so I kind of was thinking like more AEW people. And so I was thinking like Jade Cargill, or I literally just brain farted. I had him on the tip of my head. The boxer guy, Anthony Gogo.
Yeah.
I had him. I thought of him as well. Other than that, I couldn't really think of, like I said, we talked about this offline. I couldn't really think of many other true rookies in pro wrestling.
Yeah, it's really hard. And I think Dave kind of usually, like right before the ballots go out, Dave will usually we'll post on Twitter and then we'll publish in the Observer, like, here are some options you can choose for. And that kind of gives people guidelines about who's eligible for this, because look, it's not like top names are eligible for this. Rarely. It's usually just like people who are just starting out or that kind of thing. The number one person I think I'd be interested in voting for would be Kevin Knight, who's been in the New Japan USA dojo. I think he has a little experience before he came to New Japan that might predate the parameters. But if I'm just looking at someone who I think is like more like a pure rookie, he would be my choice as far as just the person who I think is the best. This other list are people that, here are just some names I'm thinking might be eligible. Jade Cargill, Brock Anderson, Colton Gunn, Top Dollar in NXT, La Estrella in Dragon Gate. Anthony Ogogo too. And like with Ogogo and Cargill, like they've only had like, Cargill I think has only had like 3 or 4 matches, and Ogogo I think has only had like, he only had one, like what I would consider like a real match, which would be his match against Cody. But I think those will be, I think Cargill would likely be someone who's going to pop up and win, because I think people are really high on her potential. And it's kind of hard to, like, should we be voting on people who are really good now, or should we be voting on people who we think have a lot of potential? And I think there's a difference. The real answer, of course, is if Taz's son Hook makes his debut this year, he's going to win the award. So we're really all just waiting for Hook and waiting for his debut, because the story with Hook is that people who have seen him wrestle say that he's great already, and they're just waiting for the right time to use him. We'll see. I heard that during all of the Jacksonville Daily's Place tapings, him and Brock Anderson would be working out together, like in the ring after the shows, and that would be like their ring time. Right. And Brock Anderson already made his debut, so presumably Hook is coming soon. And if Hook does make his debut, I believe he's going to be very difficult to beat.
I mean, they kicked out Cage, and so like that's one less person in Team Taz.
Yes, I mean, the sky is the limit for Hook, is all I'll say. And I will not be surprised. I'm not. People think that it's kind of turned into a meme online, but like.
Oh yeah, it's legit. That's actually good.
The language, the way people talk about Hook is like the way people would be talking about Rocky Maivia in 1995 or 1996 when Pat Patterson said that he was like the greatest prospect he'd ever seen in his entire life. When Hook is the next Rock, we will remember when we were on the ground floor that Hook is going to be great. But he hasn't wrestled yet, so he's not eligible for Rookie of the Year. I know that. So, but Kevin Knight, I think, would be a good choice. Jade Cargill, I think, is probably going to win it. We'll see. Like Brock Anderson, we've only seen him have one match. We'll see what he, maybe he has some good matches later this year that really impresses people. Top Dollar, maybe, being on WWE TV helps. La Estrella is probably getting the most sincere push of a guy. Like he's wrestling regularly in Dragon Gate. And then Ogogo, he just had, I think, eye surgery. And so I think he's been out of action for a while, but he was really good. Like, I mean, he's really good personality. And he looked pretty good, I think, for someone who's having their first real match against Cody Rhodes. So he's definitely in the mix. I could see him winning too, especially if he comes back and he gets in like a new feud. And he's cutting promos and he's having matches, towards the end of the year. I think he'll definitely be a candidate.
Yeah, I think the same with Top Dollar. Like, we haven't really seen a ton of matches from him. Like,
Odyssey Jones, right? The other guy too, who debuted this week.
Yeah, he just had his debut match. And so, yeah, it's just more of like sample size with those guys. Like we don't like, there's just more potential. Like you said, like everyone is projecting them to be good, but we don't really know that just yet.
Yeah. Like out of everyone I just said, I would say like Kevin Knight is easily the best like wrestler.
Yeah.
Like he's like the best performer at this point in time, but it's kind of a weird award where you don't know if you're voting on potential or you're voting on quality right now, because it's going to really vary with a lot of people. But that's it. We went kind of longer than we normally do, but we did get through all the categories. Again, a lot's probably going to change between now and then, but I think this is something that people are into. So hopefully people are interested in listening to this. And I think we did a good job kind of breaking down the different categories, and hopefully we didn't just forget someone horrible. Like we just forgot like the obvious winner of a category, but if we did, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, thank you to everyone who watches these videos. Obviously, the CM Punk news just reminds me that like our most viewed video is the CM Punk video, and so it's just a small sample size of how popular CM Punk is.
I believe our wrestling media video may have surpassed it.
I think it's getting up there.
It's getting close. It's a big ratings battle. It's like a little ratings battle on our own YouTube channel. You could be the difference in which one gets more views. Literally the difference. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everyone, for sticking around and listening to us. We'll be back again in a few weeks. I believe we're going to be talking Nick Khan, but something crazy could happen between now and then, Jason. You might not suspect it, but it could be something insane in the wrestling world could happen between now and then that we just have to talk about. So we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we really appreciate everyone who's been sticking with us, and we will see you guys again later.